Ladies and gents, welcome to the video. GetGoodGuy speaking, as you know, this is my channel after all, and let me know what you think straight away in the comments today as part of this video. What's a fair price for playing Battlefield 5 now, if you were to buy it right now? Or if you haven't got it, are you planning on buying it, and what sort of price are you looking to pay? I'm asking that question today because I get asked in my comment section all the time, I've seen this game for X price, should I buy it now? And also, I want to know what you guys that actually play the game right now think it is worth. Because we've seen all the complaints and we've seen the people defend it, let's bring it together and see what we think the actual value of BF5 is. Now, it took me zero effort to find the game for like 10 to 20 quid online, pounds rather for you guys not in the UK, which is around, what, 12 to 24 American dollars, something like that. And that's with literally zero effort, just going on Amazon or whatever, nothing like the cheapest prices. You can also find codes for it on websites for like, $5, £6 or dollars. I've had people say, I've seen this game for $8 in a bargain bin, or I've seen this going $6 secondhand, all that kind of stuff. And of course, the game is on EA Access or Origin Access, so it's like £4 or £5 or dollars a month, or £20 or $30 for the year. Basically, you can play this game really cheap now, but no reviews of the game really handle it in that manner. They just look at the game as a whole as being a AAA title, which, completely makes sense, but we need to hit the other aspects of this. And as I personally have been one of Battlefield 5's most vocal criticizers, some of you are probably settling in hoping for a video that says this game is garbage, nobody should buy it, they should pay us to play it or whatever else, but I'm not going to do that. I know, shocker, right? In isolation, as a game going for cheap, yeah, I'd say that for many, it's totally worth it, if you can find it cheap enough. It's worth throwing just a little bit of money away to see if it holds something of value for you. So yeah, if you want to just ignore all of the problems of the past year and a half of this game or whatever, if you want to almost forget this is a Battlefield game, and instead just look at it as a gaming experience you bought for very little money, then I recommend it. But as we're covering those values right now and will continue to, we also need to go into what problems you might run into as well. So with that being the basic stuff, yes, I recommend it, why don't we split this further into categories which you can see on screen now with their timestamps. We'll do sandbox experience, gunplay, content, progression, and potential problems. And yes, again, that is analysing all of them as if this game is a bargain game, not the AAA title it supposedly is supposed to be. So the sandbox experience. Well, the sandbox is made up of maps, and for the small amount of money you can pay for this game now, there are a fair few maps on it. They're fairly varied, they're quite large scale, so there are lots of possibilities to do different things, and you can obviously do things like use infantry or vehicles, there's an array of weapons to use as the infantry, and there are creative possibilities like attaching dynamite to vehicles, or plonking a health crate on a vehicle, or parachuting out of a plane and landing on top of a bridge, all sorts of stuff. So there's more sandbox opportunities than most games, that's for sure, as there aren't really many games out there like Battlefield, to be fair, a large scale shooter of this nature, with an arcadey feel a lot of the time when compared with things like Squad, Postscriptum, etc. And so yes, again in my opinion, as a sandbox experience, playing it for the first time, you do get quite a lot of freedom. I'd say it delivers on that front for sure if you're buying it for that reason, for a reduced price. However, and this is where it caught a lot of long-term Battlefield players out, don't expect it to have the same level of sandbox experience, or only in Battlefield moments, as some of the previous Battlefield entries. If you've played them before, you may be left a little bit disappointed. It's just lacking that department by comparison, unfortunately. Like, I played BF1 before this, and only in Battlefield moments happen in that game frequently, but Battlefield 5, they're much more of a rarity. But that specific point aside, yeah, I'd say it's a fairly good sandbox experience, especially with friends. In fact, I highly recommend playing with friends, which might be a little bit trickier if you're just picking this up for cheap now, but playing solo, I find the game frustrating fairly quickly after having played it for quite a long time now, of course. But with friends, I can pass 2, 3, 4 hours without too much stress generally, and overall have a pretty good time. I can put the faults aside and just have fun with my friends playing a game that supports playing with a group. But let's move on, we'll cover gunplay. If you've never played the game before, don't worry about being left behind in the gunplay department. Aside from just the basic skills of aiming and that kind of thing. There's not much to learn for the vast majority of weapons. It's very much point and shoot with most of them and you'll do fine. Of course there are mechanics and underlying aspects at play, but for your average player, it basically plays like an arena shooter in the gunplay department in a lot of ways. And it has lots of guns that suit new or less able players. Low recoil, simple, simple and familiar gunplay. Now there is bullet travel time and bullet drop. That is something some will need to get to grips with, but it isn't particularly extreme in my opinion, and if you like the idea of just having straight up simple gunfights and trying to best your enemy, then you're good to go. And although I prefer the gunplay mechanics to something like BF1, I still find shooting people in BF5 to be fun. It's been a widely praised aspect of the game by many players, and so yes, all TTK and weapon balance shifts aside, the gunplay experience is without doubt worthy of a reduced price game. Easily. It's probably the strongest aspect of the game for many. The ways to improve your play, where using guns is concerned, is simple and intuitive. Get better at aiming, control your recoil, improve your reactions, and away you go as your average casual player, unless you're more well versed in shooters and you want to look deeper, in which case you may notice more things like random recoil and blah blah blah, but for your average player, point and shoot, you're going to be alright. And so while some may find it too simplistic, many others will get to grips with the gunplay quickly and likely enjoy it. Okay, now let's do content. This was one of the fatal flaws of the BF5 experience, of the BF5 live service, if you can even call it that. Content has been delayed, cancelled, poorly implemented, all that kind of stuff, but for a discount game, there's plenty enough here. Guns, lots of them now, and there's about to be more in the final update. Yes, though, if you didn't know, and this is probably important for you to know before you buy the game, if you're doing it right now, the final fresh content drop will come in June, I believe. So that's the last one until the next Battlefield game. But regardless, you have SMGs, semi-auto rifles, bolt-action rifles, anti-material rifles, LMGs, shotguns, and more. So plenty to try, even if some of them are fairly similar from an experiential standpoint. Then we have maps, and there's a decent amount, and they're quite varied. Now, it's unlikely you as an individual will enjoy every map. Some of them really don't appeal to your average player at all. Me personally, I strongly dislike the huge open ones where you can be killed from any angle, any distance, without seeing the enemy, but some of the maps are cool, and again, for a reduced price, it's nice that you can go and play in a city in Rotterdam, or in what you call a swamp area, I guess, on Twisted Steel, or in the snowy mountains, etc. But aside from the maps, there's obviously the modes, and there's a handful of them, not really enough to be honest, as some of them got removed, which was an issue for people that bought the game when it first released, but there's a few, and you get a temporary one to play for a week here and there and that kind of stuff. So if you like the larger modes, you can do something like Conquest. If you like the smaller stuff, you can play Team Deathmatch. It's kind of limiting overall, but there's enough for a cheap purchase for most players. Progression now. It's kind of weak really, but there is stuff. The Tides of War, which is like the seasonal element of the live service, is basically irrelevant at this point, I think, with new content coming to a close. That's what I assume. We've not been outright told what's going to happen with the Tides of War, so we'll have to see. Maybe they'll keep it going in some regard, but certainly not in its full form. But overall, for progression, you have the basic season unlock list grind, and a load of challenges to complete for different guns and classes to unlock cosmetics. There's also specializations to unlock for each gun, but they get unlocked really quickly, so it's kind of a non-factor. Overall, it's decent for a budget game, but yeah, it's been a bit of a letdown for most people, especially those people that bought the deluxe edition, by the way. Like myself included, we got ripped off. And so now, importantly, let's also do the potential problems of a purchase. What do you need to be aware of before you play the game? I'm sure some of you who have played BF5 will have your own issues to list in the comments below. Again, feel free to do so, please. But there's the visibility, the actual art design of the game, and the graphical fidelity. All of that stuff combined, it makes it hard to see people, and there's no manual spotting. And some people love there being no manual spotting, and that's fine. But when you first play the game, please do not be surprised that you get shot from places by people you had no chance of seeing. It is a regular occurrence. It's something you're going to have to get used to. It has been improved, but it's still not great. Some people really like it because they like the realistic or tactical aspect of it. I disagree. I don't think it's realistic. Sometimes people are like 10 meters away and you can't see them. And I don't think lying in a bush is really particularly tactical. It's just basic lying in a bush. But each to their own. Just don't be surprised that visibility is a factor you have to consider. Then there's bugs. There's lots of bugs. For example, even now at this stage with the game having been out for ages, don't be surprised if sometimes you can't fire your weapon or aim down sight. That just happens. Don't be surprised if you get stuck in a down state. Don't be surprised if your game crashes. Don't be surprised if you see any graphical glitches like black blocks in the air. Don't be surprised by any of these things. There are bugs, they are abundant, DICE have never managed to fully clean them up, and it may well be that they never fully go away. Then there's the netcode. Something that's complained about a lot is hit detection and lag and all that kind of stuff. Netcode has been an issue in this game, even though some people tell you it hasn't been. Feel free to go and watch Battle Nonsense video from way back when he covered it. The game has had netcode issues, and I still think has them to a degree now. You can add to that people from faraway regions are now playing in the wrong region for reasons we'll come to soon, which creates really high ping enemies to play against, and that brings lag as well. And actually, let's cover that right now. So a lack of player numbers and servers being closed down in some regions pushes these players together, and that's a pretty awful experience for them sometimes, obviously, if they've got high ping all the time, and it's not great for the person playing against them as they lag around and things aren't reliable. Then there's weapon balance. Just some weapon balance in this game is poor. It's just not balanced properly. Unfortunately, DICE have never been able to get it right. They didn't listen to the right people within the team. That's all I can really say about it. But some elements of management cause the weapon balance of this game to be very flawed. It's better now than it's been at some points previously, but it's still not wonderful. So some guns are kind of irrelevant, unfortunately. And some guns, the best way to use them isn't really conducive to good gunplay. And so that kind of brings us to weapon mechanics. Again, don't be surprised to see lots of people just lying down in random places where you can't see them, because we do have MMGs in this game, which are generally only really effective when you're prone or stationary behind cover. We have anti-material rifles, which are exactly the same way. Basically, being very passive is incentivized in this game due to the map design, the weapon balance, and the visibility. Then there's the near total lack of a team balancer from what anyone can tell. Lobbies become wildly unbalanced because the game doesn't, or very rarely or ineffectively, moves people around between rounds. I've said either it needs to balance them for ability level, my second choice, honestly, because I don't really like false balancing like that. It feels very forced, but that would be better than no balancing, or just randomly reassign people and squads. So if you're playing together with people, either they stay on that team or they all get moved across. Solo players can be moved around, just something to rebalance lobbies so they don't just get wrecked, where one team just continuously gets stronger and the other team continuously loses players, gets new people in who then get wrecked and leave, etc. That is a genuine problem which I don't know if DICE will ever fix in BF5, unfortunately. And finally, cheaters. On console, you got people using Cronus Max and stuff. It's less of an issue than on PC where cheaters are rampant, but be aware of it. There's nothing that can really be done about it. But then the bigger issue is just straight up hacking on PC. DICE have never got a handle on it. It can be pretty bad, especially if you're playing in the Asian region. It's really, really awful there, so please keep that in mind. And so, I'm sure there's some things I've missed. Put them in the comments below. Again, help people out with your own suggestions, reviews, whatever. But for me, that is what I think. That is my essentially review of Battlefield 5 as a budget game in 2020. So please do let me know what you think in the comments. Like the video if you enjoyed it, dislike if you didn't. If you're new, I make loads of Battlefield content and I got other stuff coming in the future, I promised. So maybe subscribe and turn on notifications, it can't hurt. I'm just here to try and entertain you. I'll continue to do that. And all the links to my social media, including Patreon, can be found in the description and my pinned comment. Here is the Board of Awesome for the epic people who already support the channel on Patreon. They're all absolute heroes and I love them all deeply and of course, often. If you want to join them on the Board of Awesome, the link to the Patreon page is in the description and my pinned comment. And with all of that said, I'm GetGoodGuy and I'll see you next time. Laters. Not as fast firing as the Type 2A or as stable as something like the Sten or whatever, but it fires at 720 rounds per minute, has a 30 round magazine, comes with a bipod,